We're now going to begin our meeting of March 20th council meeting. Everyone, please stand while we hear the invocation.
Let us bow our heads and remember we're in the presence of the Lord. Heavenly Father, as we prepare, and Christians across the world prepare for the rising of Jesus Christ, we want to ask that you bestow upon us that spirit of reconciliation in our own families, in our own communities, in our own workplaces, that we heed this message and live it. We want to pray for the youth of our community, that they continue to bring their talents forward to serve our community. And we want to pray for those others who serve our community, our first responders, our firemen, our policemen, that you keep them safe. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Councilman Stagney, would you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Chairman, you have a quorum this evening. In accordance with Council Resolution Number B14550, please be advised that all cellular telephones, pagers, beepers, and other devices of this nature must be deactivated or silenced throughout the council meeting. Madam Chairman, this evening we received a request to change the order of business to take item 17A at the beginning of the meeting.
Okay. We have a motion by Councilman Denopoulos, second by Councilman Reno to change the order of business. All members, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Item 17A, at the request of Councilmember Denopoulos, a discussion given by Ms. Michelle Gonzalez regarding the Jefferson Parish floodplain maps.
Welcome, Ms. Gonzalez. This is Councilman Denopoulos is going to open since he has requested this. So, Councilman Denopoulos,
You got it.
you have the
Go ahead.
floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know there's been a lot of discussions lately, especially with Kenner residences, about their flood insurance and, of course, the renewal of their flood insurance. And there's a lot of questions out there that are being forwarded to several council offices about, you know, in order to renew their flood policy, they have to have a new elevation certificate. And, of course, that's costly when maybe in a year they may have to redo it again. So basically what I did was I prompted a call over to Michelle Gonzalez's office. She's actually with Jefferson Parish. She's a floodplains manager, I guess, is the title that we bestow upon you, I guess.
Yes, sir.
And basically I brought her here because, I mean, this is what she's an expert in. And I mean, and we really need to get the facts out there. You know, there's a lot of confusion. There's some misinformation that's being, you know, talked about, or when they even when a constituent goes and researches it, there's still some confusion. So, Michelle, you have the floor. Hopefully we can bring some light on this problem that not only Kenner has, but all of Jefferson Parish, I'm sure, is at one point or another they're going to have to, you know, face the fact that they're going to be renewing their flood insurance policy and what's going to happen. Okay? Thank you, Michelle, for coming.
Sure. I guess I just kind of give an update on the Biggert Waters Insurance Reform Act that took place in 2012 and kind of how that's being implemented now, because a lot of its changes took effect after October of 2013. And then also just kind of talk about elevation certificates, where we are in the map revision process, and also the new Insurance Reform Act that was passed by the House and the Senate waiting on the President's signature. So we'll start with the Biggert Waters 2012. That was signed by the President in July of 2012. That law is kind of what we're starting to see now. When homeowners are calling in asking why are they being asked for an elevation certificate when they've had an insurance policy for 30 years on their house. The law required homes to start to be rated on what they call actuarial rates. The only way you can determine what someone's actuarial rate is to determine if they're above or below the base flood elevation. So in most of Kenner, the base flood elevation is negative 3.5. So if the house was built above that, which negative means below sea level. So if a house was built above that -3.5, that'll be reflected on an elevation certificate. A lot of what you're seeing is that homes were built well before these maps were published. Homes were built, say, in the 60s or the 70s before we had any maps, and the map that we're using right now is dated 1995. This Biggert Waters Act had made it to where you really couldn't grandfather back to when the house was built. So you had to say, my house needs to be above -3.5, but you got a lot of houses in Kenner that sit at a -5 or -6. 3 foot below the base flood elevation could be $8,000 to $12,000 a year in a policy. So that was a huge issue that came up, and luckily, the grandfather is being reinstated with the new law that was passed. So that is going to allow grandfathering. The other thing that it is going to do is allow that grandfathering and that showing that the house was built into compliance when it was built, to not follow the new owner. So basically, what I saw a lot of is realtors calling my office saying a house was up for contract, the people backed out, because when they went to get the flood insurance was $7,000. That'll kill a sale immediately. So hopefully, with the new bill going into effect, sales will begin to happen again if that previous $1,200 policy can stay with the property and you not have to incur these actuarial rates. I think that eventually, flood insurance's goal is to get to rate everyone actuarial. The new bill is definitely going to help us right now. It's going to come up again in 2017. So there's still things that need to be worked out. Hopefully by that point, we will be done with our map process, because the maps are going to fix a lot of these problems. Right now, the maps say pretty much anywhere north of I-10 in Kenner, even Metairie area, you're looking at a -5 base flood elevation. So if the house was built either to that -3.5, or maybe it sits at a -4. So it's below the 1995 map, but it's above this new map. That helps the property right there. The problem is that the new map that was issued in July of 2012 cannot be used for rating purposes until it makes its way through the entire federal process. Right now, a month ago, we were almost at the end of that process. We had made our way through the entire comment and appeal period. We did several outreach meetings last year in August, submitted 125 homeowner comments and 1 parish-wide appeal. The appeal for this area specifically focused on inaccuracies that we saw along the West Metairie Canal. There were specific pockets that FEMA was not modeling correctly and showing that there was excess water in certain areas that has never been there historically. So that's part of what we're working with FEMA on, revisions to the map. These were set to be relatively simple revisions that would take around 90 days. We are still working on those, and in the process of that, FEMA has now informed us that I guess around end of January, they were informed by the Army Corps of Engineers that there is new LIDAR data, and that is information regarding the ground surface elevation. That information was flown for all of the parishes, including Jefferson, St. Bernard, Orleans, that are kind of in this map process together. That change is going to require FEMA to, I don't want to say start from the beginning, but almost start from the beginning. They are going to have to issue what they call revised preliminary maps. So the preliminary maps we're looking at have a date of July of 2012 on them. So when we get the revised maps, we'll have a new date. Say they come out in, best case scenario, September of 2014. At that point, it kind of starts that 18-month to 2-year period all over again. We have to do the posting in the Federal Registry, the postings in the newspaper, the comment and appeal periods again, any revisions based off of comments and appeals. It is not an optimal time frame for most of the people that are wanting to see these maps that are going to help them. You know, my first question to FEMA was, okay, so we have different ground elevation. It's based off of a data set that was 10 years old. Is that negatively or positively affecting us? What are we looking at? They said that in most areas, the ground elevation has dropped. So let's say the map was looking at an area in Kenner that said the ground was at negative 5.5. Now they're seeing ground might actually be at negative 6. He said that's not, in most cases, a bad thing because it creates additional storage for water. So we may currently be seeing a base flood elevation of negative 5. We have the option, maybe that'll go to negative 5.5. Those are just kind of numbers that we're throwing out there until we see the maps that FEMA produces. We don't know exactly what that will be. So the short of that is, I don't anticipate having new maps to be used for insurance rating purposes until at least 2 to 2.5 years from now. I guess the flip side of that, how we kind of talked about the new Insurance Reform Act that will allow people to grandfather, is probably the only thing that's gonna help right now. To keep, because if that wouldn't have happened, I could see sales not happening at all for a lot of people. The majority of the calls that I get and have gotten this week specifically ask, can Jefferson just adopt the maps that we have now? And the short answer of that is, we can't adopt the maps as they are now because they still have that title as preliminary. A preliminary map has to go through the whole process and get a letter from FEMA that says that it's final. It's called a letter of final determination. That triggers us to adopt the maps, and each community adopts at that point. So it's kind of the long and short of where we are. I know we had a question about elevation certificates. When flood insurance sends a letter and it says, we're not gonna renew your policy without an elevation certificate. I've had several people call, talk to insurance agents. There is a provision that someone can be, can't remember, it's like a temporary rating for a year, but that temporary rate is usually higher than what you would pay for an elevation certificate, so it's not always the best option to go for. One thing that I would definitely encourage citizens to do is to, if you have to get the elevation certificate is gonna be based off of the 1995 map. So section B of it is where it talks about all of the information about your elevation certificate, about your flood map. If your house was built before 1995, you need to contact your local community, whether that's me or whichever municipality you live in, and see if you can get information about the previous map. Because if your house was built between 1976 and 1995, that was the map you built to at that time. So that information can't guarantee that it will grandfather you, but at least it's something to take with you, ammunition to try to help negate that if your house is below the base flood elevation. Exactly how they're rolling that out to citizens is very confusing to me. I'll get calls from people that have never flooded, that they're asking for an elevation certificate. I'll get calls from people who flooded 7 times. I thought it was going to be, based on everything I read, severe repetitive loss and non-primaries first. But there are people that have never flooded that get these letters. So it's kind of a learn as you get calls from citizens type of thing, which is kind of sad in some aspects. So let's see. So is there any specific questions that any of you have gotten from citizens that maybe I've gotten also that you kind of wanted to clarify real quick?
You mentioned a question, 1995 to 1976 to 1995. Of course, you know, that was pretty much a growth decade for Kenner. A lot of houses were built during that time. A lot of neighborhoods were put up during that time. So you're saying that we should obtain a map, a current map that the city had at the time? Maybe we can put that up on our website.
We have, and I know I talked with the Code Enforcement Department, I talked with Amy and Dana, and they have the map panels from 1976.
We do.
And that is, in
Can we-
Jefferson, I think I have about 36 panels. I think y'all have 2 or 3 panels. So it's not difficult to find where somebody's property would have been
So-
on that map.
Maybe we can put that on our website and they can click on it and be able to make copies of those map panels? Yeah, yeah, because I mean, at least to try to get it grandfathered in, and we're talking, I mean, just in my district alone, I can name 3 or 4 neighborhoods that were built during this time. You know, I mean, now that's not the cure-all for everybody, but at least it's, you know, it's good information out there to, you know, get those map panels on our, we already have maps on our website, we just click on that and send it to our insurance company. because-
Right, if they'll accept the map panel, in some cases, they do want a letter on letterhead, just
Saying
filling
that
that
it-
out, yeah. And
Fine.
so definitely, my office, we do those for unincorporated Jefferson, and then the communities do that for.
So just to get this clear, because I know we went through a process. We had public hearings, we had all these things that were required to adopt, and they were based on certain ground elevations those maps were based on. Then what came around to change that? You said something that the Army Corps of Engineers decided that
After
those were
the,
bad.
After the Army Corps of Engineers finished, or for all purposes, finished the levee system that they built around the five parish area here, they flew a new LiDAR ground elevation data, just to kind of have that base information. Because the Army Corps of Engineers is doing lots of modeling about drainage-type modeling in these areas to see how all the water works. So a lot of their models are incorporated into the FEMA model. I'm not exactly sure why that information was not presented earlier. That information, from what I understand from FEMA, was presented to them in January of 2014. And some of that arose based off of the comments that they received from citizens in Jefferson and Orleans through the MAP comment and appeal period saying, I have an elevation certificate and it shows my ground elevation at 2 feet and you're showing it at 4 feet. So there's an inconsistency there. So that's why, and when I specifically asked, not only is it delaying us, but it's delaying FEMA and the work that they have to do. I think everybody supported these maps moving forward. And
So
part of the-
basically, there was a little bit of a disconnect in communication because you had FEMA going through all this process at an elevation, and all of a sudden, Army Corps says, "Oh, we got something different. You should have been starting on this earlier." And what was that lapse time? Over a year, probably, they've had it.
the maps were officially released in July of 2012, so I'm sure it was sometime before that FEMA had finished them. I don't know when the actual LiDAR was flown, but they told me it was dated 2012. So sometime in that process that FEMA produced the maps, there was new data. And I think that, I don't know for sure if there was communication back in 2012. Part of the Bigger Waters flood insurance reform required the map process to include best available data. So once FEMA was presented with best available data for the ground elevation, then they had to revise.
Pretty much stuck a knife in that one, right?
Right.
Okay, all right. I'm gonna open the floor to the rest of my colleagues at this point, but I guess we can see why there's gonna be another, what you're telling me, another 2-year period, another whole nother process of public hearings and
I think so, because when FEMA released them in July of 2012, they kind of did the first, I guess, rollout in September of 2012, comment meetings March of 2013, follow-up comment in September of 2013. So you kind of see how that process took at least 12 to 18 months to get to comment and appeal period,
Right.
just through that. So from the date that FEMA releases the revised maps, I think we're looking at 18 to 24 months.
Okay, thank you very much, Bill. I'm gonna go ahead and open up to the rest of my colleagues. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Denopoulos. Councilman Brannigan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman.
I'll let Al.
In the real estate world, this new legislation is only going to help a small amount of people in terms of, what we're going to see in relief when the maps come. I mean, it's almost like you've found a needle in a haystack and now it's got to fit through a certain peg. Some older communities like Lakeview, that's going to be an obvious advantage to them if, in fact, people still have the same flood insurance that they had way back when. But because of the building up over there, a lot of those elevations have changed, or those things were lost, and so people got new elevation certificates, and so now the game starts over. There is no existing old flood policy that would have been beneficial to a new homeowner who was forced to go out and get a flood elevation certificate. So I'm not as excited about what happened as everybody else is, and I think it's because a lot of people don't understand that it's helping this many people.
Yeah, the grandfathering rules have a lot of kind of red tape and documentation that go with it. And so you are correct in that it's,
Yeah, because everybody around my office, they said, oh, it passed. And I went, which one of your clients is that helping? And not one of them could think of a situation that it was. The maps are going to be the things that are going to be, for the most part, going to be helping East Jefferson and Kenner. You know, on top of all of these, you know, new regulations with the flood policies, lenders have new regulations that are putting houses that are at perfectly good flood rates in jeopardy, because if there used to be, if there was a detached garage, it wasn't finished, they didn't need flood insurance on it, and so it didn't matter. Well, detached garages are built below the level of the house, and so now lenders are requiring that those be insured. And so, you know, we're looking at, I had one last week where the garage alone, it was $1,700 for the flood insurance. And it was a requirement, they had to have the insurance on an unfinished detached garage that was built at a lower level on purpose, you know? So,
the only suggestion I have to that is, because I did actually have a garage, it was an attached garage that we elevated the house and left the garage on the ground. As long as, once the flood vents were installed, that drastically reduced their policy. Flood vents aren't that expensive. I don't know if that works the same for detached garages, if you put the flood vents in them, if
yeah,
that helps.
I don't know. But I mean, it's an awful lot of additional steps, and we are going to see it becoming more and more and more of a problem in our market. So I had a couple questions, though. Risk Map 6 is where we've, you know, nobody wants to be the authority on this new, on the flood maps, on any of the flood situations. So we point everybody to either their insurance agent, who have differing, you know, you can call one insurance agent and, yeah, that's assumable, and another one, no, that's, you know, same policy and it's not assumable. So you have agents who don't necessarily understand everything going on, who don't want the liability of allowing something that wouldn't, you know, pass the muster. So everybody points to Risk Map 6. So Risk Map 6 is where the flood maps, the potential flood maps that will be released if everything goes well. How is that going to change now?
Risk Map 6 is maintained by FEMA through this whole map adoption process. When they revised one panel, they recently, I think it was last year in September, they revised one panel based off of information, I think, close to the Duncan pumping station. And when they did that, they just kind of changed that one panel. So I don't know exactly if we're going to see all of the maps change completely, or just they're going to change things. But that will be the first location that FEMA rolls out the map changes, the revisions to the preliminary maps. At least that's what they've informed me.
Okay, and so from what I understood, and I didn't understand the 18 months to 2 years, so this
Okay.
is kind of, this was not, it wasn't easy to listen to. I had heard that when they made the revisions, there's a 6-month public input process, and then there's a layover period of 90 days. That's what I had heard. So, which seems a whole lot less than 2.5 years, but you're telling me it's much longer than that.
The process that we've been in officially began, I think, September of 2012, and at January of 2014, we were about 3/4 of the way done. So that's where I'm basing this 18 to 24 months off of. Because when we get the revised preliminaries, we will be back pretty much to that maybe like August of 2012 type of timeframe. And I don't remember any 6-month period. There's a posting in the Federal Registry, which I think is a 30-day. There's a comment period, but there's a 30-day posting in the newspaper before the 30-day comment period. Then there's certain things that FEMA has to do. They have to meet with the local communities. I'm not sure if they had come here. I know they went to Jefferson Parish and had I officially handed them the maps, and there's just all of this federal process.
Right, I knew there was a process, but I don't think anybody understood that it was going to be another 2 years. And that's what I'm a little concerned, I'm very concerned about.
Yeah, I was hoping that it was going to be, and there are times whenever they revise the maps that it does not initiate the process all over again. What FEMA told me is they've gotten, I guess, an opinion from, I can't remember the name of the agency he said, but it is requiring them to go back to Federal Registry, which kind of initiates all of these comment and appeal periods again.
I promise you, 90% of the people in this room, if they went to sell their house right now, it's going to negatively impact them. And they may not be able to sell their house. When you have, if you look at your flood deck policy, just for people's information, on there it says elevation difference. And if, the only way to figure out if there was an elevation certificate is if there's some variable there. If it says 1, that means it was 1 foot off or, difference. If there's a 0, it's hard to know if there was an elevation certificate because it's almost like a 0. It was at base flood, or it was not applicable because they didn't use an elevation certificate. And those policies used to be assumable. And today, everybody would have to go get their own flood elevation certificate if it's not a pre-firm grandfathered, and have it re-quoted. And that's what, we're running into huge premiums. And the problem is, somebody may be able to negotiate that the seller pays 1 year, but the lender escrows that, and so if it's $4,000, your house note is going to be whatever the principal, interest, 1/12 of the homeowners, and 1/12 of that that's, people can't afford the size houses that they could if this wasn't the way. Okay, so last thing I wanted to ask you was, how old can an elevation certificate be to get a flood quote?
We have never gotten an official opinion from FEMA on that. I know I personally bought my house last year in May, and the elevation certificate I turned in was on a form that expired in 1996. They accepted it, rated me. I'm 1 foot above. I pay $600 a year. I've had other people tell me their agents don't accept them if they are on an outdated form, which the OMB date at the top, that changed. From what most agents have told me is it has to have the 1995 map as the effective date.
Should be a blank.
Okay.
So that's what I've been told. Of course, when the maps change, whether that be a year or 2 from now, anybody who bought an elevation certificate today is going to have 1995 in that section B. They will have to get that updated with.
And engineering companies are making a fortune because everybody is having to pay $235 up to $300 for an elevation certificate just for the privilege of selling their home, and it may or may not be in their best interest to have that on hand to show to somebody, but in the end, the buyers would buy it anyway, and it's a mess. It really is a mess, so I am not encouraged by what just happened, FYI. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilman Brannigan. I'm going to allow Mr. Al Morello, who's been standing, and he was standing up before my colleagues turned their lights on, so I'm going to let him take the microphone, but stay close. You have 3 minutes, Al.
Thank you, Jeannie. Al Morello, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 42 years. Councilwoman Brannigan, I couldn't agree with you more. There's a couple of things. First of all, Ms. Gonzalez, I want to say I appreciate you taking the time to come here. You talked about the Bigot Waters Act. You talked about the new legislation that was passed in the Congress and is waiting the president's signature. But there's a few things, Ms. Gonzalez, you did not mention, okay? And this is why I commend Michelle Brannigan for saying what she said. Although the homeowners are not going to experience the catastrophic flood increases that was intended, that they was going to, and I'll thank our delegation up there for the effort anyway, but it doesn't go nearly far enough. The homeowners are going to experience, most homeowners are going to experience an 18% increase in their flood insurance premiums per year. That's the cap on the new legislation. They can't go up no more than 18%. Now, a couple of other things that wasn't mentioned, and I've been pushing this for months now at the Jefferson Parish Council meetings, and now I'm going to say it here, okay? All of this could have been avoided 2 years ago before Bigot Waters was passed. If somebody in our delegation up there would have demanded an audit of the National Flood Insurance Program. The case for audit is simply this. There were several private insurance companies handling people's flood insurance premiums that the people were unaware of. These insurance companies, private insurance, were getting 30, 40, 50% commission for handling people's flood insurance policies that they had no knowledge of. And to make matters worse, these private insurance companies scattered $25 million all over Washington in campaign contributions. What is my source? The Times-Picayune. So I can't think of a better case to demand an audit of the National Flood Insurance Program. I don't think before there's any increases imposed on the people in Jefferson Parish, St. Bernard, no matter where you live, there should be an audit demanded by the people and by our governments of that National Flood Insurance Program. Federal monopoly, $27 billion in debt, haven't had a hurricane here since Katrina was the first major hurricane we had in 40 years. Something don't add up here. $27 billion in debt, federal monopoly. You tell me. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you,
Jeannie.
Al. Councilman Stagney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Ms. Black. First, Ms. Gonzalez, thank you for being here tonight on the request of Councilman DeNapolis. Myself and on behalf of Mr. Quigley, we thank you for being here for several hours many months ago trying to explain some of the same things to some of our residents who cared enough to come out that night. Now, let me ask you this. The legislation that Congress passed, does that freeze the rates?
I didn't read anything about rate freezes. There is some provision that it did talk about reimbursing homeowners that had been purchased homes after the Biggert Waters 2012 and were charged the increases. I'm personally very confused by that myself. I don't know how they're going to determine who's eligible for that reimbursement and then how that even goes about. I can think of several people, probably over 100, who I've talked to in the past couple of months whose rates went from $1,200 to $8,500. Do they fit in that category? You know, someone who bought a house, they paid their $1,200 policy, and then it got to FEMA, and it came back saying that they really needed to pay $8,000. So they had to escrow more. They had already closed on the house. So I really don't know how that's going to happen.
Would you care to give your contact information? They're going to have residents who watch the rebroadcast of this council meeting and may want to ask us some questions that we may not be as knowledgeable upon. So if you could give your contact information, and maybe at the same time this is playing, KTV can flash it up on the screen.
Sure. I will give my contact information. I am located in the Yenny Building on the 8th floor, Suite 801. It's the Department of Floodplain Management. The telephone number is 504-736-6540. I will add to that I am in the process of hiring another floodplain manager, so it is just me in the office, so please be patient if it takes a little bit for me to return your call. If there is some type of a backlog, it usually takes around hopefully less than a week, but that's what it is right now. We've had a little bit of staffing issues, so I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gonzalez. Thank you, Councilman DeNapolis, for bringing her here tonight. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Stagney. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and again, Ms. Gonzalez, thank you again for coming to to our council meeting to be able to speak to our constituency. I also like to thank my counterpart, Councilman DeNapolis, for inviting you. But I guess, unlike my other counterpart, Ms. Brannigan, I live in historical District 1 by the levee. I'm a little bit more inclined to think that we're in a better situation because another great reason to live in District 1 is that, when I grew up as a little boy, we never knew what flood insurance was. It wasn't required by my parents and all of the people who live in our area. Even now, the people who get it, it's like $200. I hate to even say it to the people who are paying these outrageous prices. Also, we are south of the interstate. We live in the highest part of the city, and most of the homes were built before 1976. So, it's like a trifecta. We check all the boxes for those. Even with the grandfather, it helps us again. And I guess my first question is to be able to get that information to show that all of the homes built before 1976, 95, Could you forward that to my office, and I can, in some way, because there are a number of seniors in my district that all of this stuff we're talking about now, I got a little confused myself, but to be able to give them this information, and I'm sure the insurance companies, when they contact to pay the insurance, understand that these homes were built before that, so a flood insurance certificate is not required. I mean, I was never asked where I live. The home I live in was built, much before 1976. So, but I still would like to have it for the people who have built in between that window of 76 and 90 and 1995. So, because of that, because of the area where we live in, the new maps are going to come out. Will it affect a large portion of the people in District 1? I'm a little more confident that it won't raise people flood insurance to $8,000. But it does help to be able to have this information beforehand to facilitate through the community for them to not to get shocked that when they hear people talking about $8,000, that the area that they live in, they will not experience these dramatic increases in the insurance. So thanks again for coming, and I'd like to get that information from you. And just based on your experience from the river to the interstate, do you agree with me that the people who live in this area will not experience the increases after the dust has cleared? Is that a fair assessment, or am I missing it?
I would say the river to the railroad tracks or the river to airline is kind of one type of area. The new maps have a little bit of a different take around this West Metairie, West Napoleon area. And we're hoping that the revisions will pick up the way that the drainage system actually works and that the water flows. I do want to clarify that the city of Kenner actually does have those maps, and Amy will be able to get those to you. I just don't have them. They're not privy to my office.
I understand. I can get it from Amy.
I also do want to say that that's another thing that I don't want any, there are citizens who definitely need to be concerned about the rate hikes for their properties, but definitely the ones who their houses are in the low-risk zones, the X zone, their house is above the base flood elevation, those types of things. I don't want there to be any type of mass pandemonium or that there's going to be this drastic, everybody's going to an $8,000 premium. But just, I actually had a call from someone, I know it's not in Kenner, but it's very close off of Fillmore today, right there, not far from Kenner. And they were calling because their mortgage company had contacted them because they had rerun their flood zone. So it's not just coming from insurance agents. So you might start to get calls from people who are saying, my mortgage company is now telling me that I have to do this or that based off of the new zone. And that kind of goes with what Ms. Brannigan was saying about the mortgage industry is also being regulated with a lot of this, and they're having to make sure that their properties are carrying enough insurance. So that may be where you get a lot of calls from people in your area, is just their mortgage company is wanting to make sure of their flood zone.
Right, and just to be sure, and I'm glad you expressed that obviously we don't want that panic for people. And if they get it, to be able to assure them that this is information that you have based on when your home was built and based on where you live at, not to panic. And if you get a call from the mortgage company to, talk to your insurance company, just to make sure everybody's on the same page and understanding until, which you predict, another year or two before things are.
The only other thing I'd like to plug, if I can, is that if you do get an elevation certificate, you talk with your agent, and your house is below the base flood elevation significantly, and you're looking at this really large insurance rate, that is one of the largest priorities that we have for the elevation grants. That also comes through my office at the parish, same phone number, 736-6540. The majority of the grant homes that FEMA is funding right now is severe repetitive loss properties. We are working on gathering applications from homeowners that fit in that category that is usually 4 flood losses greater than $5,000 or 2 flood losses that exceed the building value. So if there's anybody in Kenner that feels they meet that qualification, we definitely want to get their information, call my office, we'll get you an application. Hopefully later on in the summer, FEMA's going to open that grant program to kind of try to help alleviate those.
Yeah.
issues that we're seeing.
Well, we have a couple of District 1 residents that live between the airport and the river who are here right now, and I'm sure they're glad to hear that information from you. But yes, thanks again for coming. I'd like to get that information as far as it relates to the grandfather clause from you, and I will also get the copy of the maps from Miss Amy. Thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. And Ms. Gonzalez, I'd like to thank you very much for coming out tonight and explaining to us what you could to us. It's very, very confusing, and I have to tell you that I could not possibly absorb everything you told me tonight. So I'm going to listen to it again on the tape of this program, because it's impossible to absorb all the things. I'd like to talk to you about some of the disbeliefs or the beliefs that some people have in regards to flood insurance. Many people have said to me, and I've heard it said in conversations, well, sure, instead of targeting the people who have been constantly flooding, they're putting it together in zones, and some of these people that are in these high zones have never flooded, whereas you have people that live in a River Ridge area or someplace close to the lake, the river, that has had a lot of flooding. Why aren't they targeting the people who have had constant flooding, or the people who live in the low-lying areas? And they pay, if they want to live in those areas, let them absorb the high cost, because they think that since Katrina and because it's Sandy, that FEMA is almost broke in paying out what they had to pay in flood insurance from their policies. So can you just give us shed a little light on this, and have these things actually been taken into effect?
I can give you what FEMA's response typically is.
Oh, well,
Where they say
yes.
that into the maps, they do not take into historic flooding in the maps. And the map is what drives the flood insurance rate. If that is accurate, I'm not sure. So whenever you look at, there's a lot of flooding in 1995, just like you said, around the River Ridge area. FEMA continues to say they don't look at that. I think kind of if we wanted to narrow down why some areas that have had a lot of historic flooding are now going to, on these new maps, see their zones greatly reduced, or is because there's been so much drainage work. All of the drainage projects that have been done by the Corps, by FEMA, by a lot of different agencies, City of Kenner probably paid for some, and Jefferson's paid for some. All of those new projects that have been implemented since 1995 till now have been incorporated in the map. That was a big part of our appeal, is that there are some other small projects that have not been included. And I think what I was reading recently is that is another part of this, what they're pushing is to, they take into account a large new drainage canal or a large pump at the lake. There are other smaller projects that have been done that are counting, and we're trying to get them to recognize those in these maps to kind of,
It
and the
seems
other
too simplistic, right?
right. But the other thing is that what we saw and what we appealed to them was you did this project, and now you're showing that these people aren't going to flood anymore, but the flooding may occur over here when historically that's never happened. It doesn't happen on a regular day. So there was just a lot of inconsistencies in the map, and we hope that comes out in the new map. We would have preferred them to push forward with this one and then let us amend it after they adopted, because the map by and far helped thousands of Jefferson Parish residents.
Well, I thank you for putting it in terms that all of us could almost understand. But from the last maps that I saw, Kenner really fared out pretty good compared to some of the other areas. We have properties that in the north area of Kenner that were built in the 50s and 60s. So considering what, the problems that we've had, we fared out pretty good. And during Katrina, let's face it, during Katrina, it was a man-made error, not elevation level in Jefferson Parish that caused us all of our problems.
Thank you.
So I thank you for coming tonight, and I thank you for giving us all of that input. And hopefully anyone that has further questions that are affected will be able to contact you. I feel sorry for you because you're probably going to get bombarded, but, and that you'll hire someone to help you. But thank you so much for your information. We appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
Excuse me, Councilman Carroll, would you turn off your light? And Councilman DeFrancis, I'm going to give you the floor because your light just went on.
Thank you, Ms. Gonzalez, for coming as well. But I just wanted to echo something that our council president said. There are portions of North Kenner, not during the worst rainstorms, not during any of the hurricanes ever flooded. And yet, the rates in those areas were substantially higher in the last few years since FEMA took over and decided that they had to change the maps and change the ratings. And again, it doesn't seem fair that those areas are being punished, and yet they've never taken a penny from the federal government because of flooding and drainage problems. So I just wanted to put on the record that she's absolutely right, and I agree with her because I can think of many areas that fall into that category.
Right.
Thank you, though, for coming very much.
Okay,
All right.
thank you so
All right,
much.
thank you.
Council Clerk?
Yes, ma'am. The consent agenda this evening, item 1, approval of minutes, the regular council meeting of March 6, 2014. Item 2 is approval of alcoholic beverage permit applications. Item 2A is a resolution granting an alcoholic beverage permit to Kenner Italian Heritage Incorporated on March 28th, 29th, and 30th, 2014, at 303 Williams Boulevard, being property owned by the city of Kenner and Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3 is approval of bingo and public gathering applications. Item 3A is application number 1804/14, Helldiver Spear Fishing Club to hold a public gathering for the purpose of a fishing rodeo on June 8, 2014, from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. at North Kenner Park in Kenner, Louisiana. 3B is application number 1805/14, Louisiana Blue Crab Run, to hold a public gathering for the purpose of a fundraiser run on May 17, 2014, from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. at Lake Town, Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3C is application number 1806/14, the City of Kenner to hold a public gathering for the purpose of music in the park on May 2nd, 9th, 16th, 23rd, and 30th, 2014, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Heritage Park in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3D is application number 1807/14, the City of Kenner to hold a public gathering for the purpose of movies in the park on May 3rd, 10th, 17th, 24th, 31st of 2014, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. at Heritage Park in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3E is application number 1808/14, the Kenner Italian Heritage Incorporated to hold a public gathering for the purpose of a Kenner Italian Heritage Festival on March 28, 2014, from 6 p.m. to 10 p.m., March 29, 2014, from noon to 10 p.m., March 30th, 2014, from noon to 9 p.m., at Rivertown in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 3F is application number 1809/14, St. Jerome Church to hold a public gathering for the purpose of a Good Friday outdoor Way of the Cross procession on April 18, 2014, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. in Highway Park Subdivision in Kenner, Louisiana. Item 4 is correspondence, reports from the mayor, CAO, or department heads. Item 4A, at the request of the administration, the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council quarterly report to the City Council.
Do we have a spokesman for that group?
I'm going to start off for the group. If the members of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council would please stand. I want to thank them for all their hard work. Their Vice President, Janae Torrance, is going to give the report this evening. I also want to thank them for their patience this evening. I told them they'd be at the beginning of the agenda. They have exams right now, and they have been very patient. They have a worthy cause. I think you're going to be impressed with their presentation, and we would appreciate any community support for this group. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Would you please give your name? and-
My name is Janae Torrance, and I'm the Vice President of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. Okay. So firstly, I'd like to thank Alicia Chaudhry for bringing the idea of the Youth Council to Mariani, and then I'd like to thank Mariani for making it more than just an idea. And I would also like to thank you, the council, for allowing us to present our ideas and what we've been doing to all of you today. Okay. Next slide, please. So one of the first things we did as a council was elect our officers. Our president is Arjun Verma, and he couldn't be with us today. The vice president is yours truly. Our secretary is Annadelle Zakaria. Our communications officer is Brianna Duransley. Our historian is Victoria Klebert. And then next, we brought service project ideas to each other to vote on as our largest project of the year. And so the committee chair of our service project is Ashley Johnson. Next slide, please. So this is the mission statement of the Mayor's Youth Advisory Council. And so we would like to fulfill our mission as best as we can throughout our year. And so I'd like to specifically highlight the line about providing input on issues important to the youth of Kenner. And that's, I guess, our main goal is to do things involving the youth of Kenner and bringing the youth into the city government more and making the youth more involved. Next slide, please. And so our first service project is a charity cabbage ball game. And to make this game a success, we are holding fundraisers these next few months leading up to the game on June 21st. Our first fundraiser is a Teen Day in Rivertown on April 12th. And our goal was to hold all the fundraisers in Kenner to bring the community together and celebrating our city while also raising money for this event. And we need all the contribution and help we can get, and we'd very much enjoy if you all could support us in these endeavors. And all the money that we raise from the fundraisers and through the charity cabbage ball game will go towards the renovation of Veterans Park. So next slide, please. So our charity cabbage ball tournament will be on June 21st, 2014, and we're partnering with Friends of Rivertown and Kenner Recreation to make this happen. And so we need as much help as we can, and the cabbage ball game isn't just for teenagers or kids. We want it to be a family affair. We want the whole community to be involved. So instead of parents just dropping their children off at the tournament to stay the whole day, we'd like if they would stay too, because we have an adult league, and we'll also have raffles and music and games for the whole family. So we want it to be a community event, not just for the youth of Kenner. Even if the youth are going to get the biggest, I guess, reward from this, since we will be rebuilding Veterans Park. We're hoping to rebuild it. And hopefully, if this is a great success, and we all hope it will be, it'll become an annual event, and so we can eventually raise funds to help, I guess, revitalize all the parks in Kenner. Next slide, please. So this is the flyer for our cabbage ball game. And so I just wanted to restate that this is a family event and that we want everyone in Kenner to come out. We want the whole family to be there. And so we just want the entire community to come together in support of the parks in Kenner. Thank you. Next slide. And so also as a council, we wanted to show our support for the Kenner 2030 plan. And we actually proposed some ideas for the beautification of Kenner and better lighting, which is something that our President Arjun is very passionate about. And Ms. Natalie had told us at our meeting that that is something that the 2030 plan already had in plans. So we just wanted to show that we support it completely and that if there's anything we can do to help out or contribute, we would love to do it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Councilman Denopoulos, you have the floor.
I just got a quick little question. I couldn't quite read it on the screen, but the cabbage tournament that you're throwing.
Cabbage ball,
Cabbage
yes.
ball tournament that you're throwing. Oh, I got a hit with a couple of cabbages last week, okay? Anyway, I mean, basically, the family shows up, y'all gonna divide us up into teams and we're gonna play, or is this something that you already have teams already set up?
Well, you have to sign up first, and I
Okay.
believe the last day to sign up is June 6th.
Okay,
So there are teams of 12. And so there's an adult league, and then there's a high school league, and then there's a middle school league. And there'll also be games for younger children who aren't old enough to play.
I got you. Okay, great. I'll be participating. That sounds like a lot of fun. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President, and thanks again for your great presentation. But I wanted to also ask about the activity in Rivertown for Teen Day. Is that during the Italian Festival? Or is it?
No, it's a separate day, but we will have a booth at the Italian Heritage Festival, and where we will have it's like a kids game where the children can come and like paint something and bring it back with them to help raise money. But the Teen Day is a separate event, and we'll be showing a movie in Heritage Park, and the planetarium will be open for light shows.
Okay, how long will it last? From what hours?
It should
to what
be, I
hours?
guess, maybe noon to 8 at night, around that
Okay.
time.
Yeah, the planetarium's normally open at noon on Saturdays. Their specific shows will start at 2, and then they'll have a movie that night. They all voted on a movie and picked a movie, Pitch Perfect, which will show at 8 p.m.
Okay. Ms. Newton, will you please send email that information to my office?
I can
tomorrow?
email everything, and I just wanted to add that on their Mayor's Youth Advisory Council page, which is a subpage on the website, the information on the tournament is now up, the registration forms are now up, and a press release will go out tomorrow containing all this information. We just wanted to allow them to be the first to present it.
Yeah, well, thank you in advance for that information. Thank you very much, and continue the good luck, good work.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam President.
Councilwoman Brannigan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Congratulations, guys, on a lot accomplished in a very short period of time. So
Thank
it's
you.
very exciting. Ms. Newton, I just wanted to ask a question that will probably be asked of us as time goes on, so let's nip it in the bud. Any monies that are collected for any of the events that the Youth Council is doing, is that going through the nonprofit Friends of Rivertown, or is there a separate accounting for it?
Friends of Rivertown, for now, will be collecting the funds to donate back to this specific project to rebuild the playground at Veterans Park. I am working with finance right now to open a separate account for any funds going through recreation to be dedicated for future projects, should we have any rollover.
Okay.
Or like if they have their paint party that goes through Leisure Services, but would be dedicated to a specific project for the Youth Council.
Okay, very good. Thank you, and good luck and congratulations on your success so far.
Councilwoman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
Thank you. I just have a quick question. Besides this council meeting and putting it on the website, are you using any other methods, going to businesses to put up posters, et cetera, to get the message out, or Facebook, whatever methods you're using? I just thought you might want to mention.
Yes, we will all be bringing flyers to our schools and personally telling people that we know about it. And we also are creating a Facebook page to host. We're going to have a T-shirt design contest. So we're hoping that will also get the word out about the tournament.
Thank you. And congratulations. Yeah, the hard work that you all have put into it certainly makes us all very proud. Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilman Reyno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Congratulations to all of y'all. And on the teen day that you're going to have, what is the age groups? Is there an age, starting age?
I guess maybe about 13, since the movie Pitch Perfect is rated PG-13.
Okay.
So I think that's a good age to start.
And the Cabbage Ball is going to have different teams, different
Yes,
age
they'll be,
groups?
yes, it'll be separated by the age groups.
Okay. And Natalie, we'll be able to put that on Facebook as well, too, right?
Everything will go up tomorrow.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you all for your organizing so quickly, getting so many things done. I'm very proud of what you've all been able to accomplish. They say the future of our country is in its youth. I feel very encouraged by what this group has done, and I wish there were many, many more of you. And thank you for all your services.
Thank you.
Item 6 is change orders requiring an expenditure of less than $5,000. Item 6A is a resolution approving change order number 2 in the amount of $2,198 and accepting as complete the contract with Southern Construction of Metairie LLC regarding the construction of the AP Clay Gazebo and Enhancement Area, seal bid number 13-6124 for the Department of Community Development. Item 7 is acceptance of committee findings for final passage. We have none. Item 8 is re-subdivision ordinances for final passage. We have none.
Okay, motion by Councilwoman Brannigan, second by Councilwoman Black. Please vote on the consent.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 7-0. Under the public appearance agenda this evening, we have item 9, public hearings for final passage. Item 9A is a public hearing regarding summary ordinance number 11,659, an ordinance granting Entergy Louisiana LLC right-of-way, servitude, and easement across a portion of parcel Y, Kenner Project Subdivision, wastewater treatment plant number 3, for construction, maintenance, improvement, repair, and operation of electric power and communication facilities for the Consolidated Sewer District of the City of Kenner.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFrancis, second by Councilwoman Black, to open a public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Councilmember Brannigan has left the meeting.
We're now in a public hearing to discuss summary ordinance number 11,659. If there's anyone in the audience who wishes to address this matter, please come forth now. Motion by Councilman DeFrancis, second by Councilman Black, to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0.
Motion to approve by Councilwoman DeFrancis, second by Councilman Black. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 10 is opening of bids. We have none. Item 11 is reclassification of zoning for final passage. We have none. Item 12 is other ordinances for final passage. Item 12A is summary ordinance number 11,671, an ordinance amending the Kenner Code of Ordinances, Chapter 3, Alcoholic Beverages, Article 2, Permit for Sale of High Alcohol Content, Section 3-18, to define a B drinker, and Section 3-37, certain acts prohibited on retail premises, suspension or revocation for violation, and to provide for the related matters.
I guess I'll take the rap on this. Motion by Councilman Black, second by Councilman Denopoulos. Give us a little brief explanation, please. Hello.
I'm sorry. Francine's here.
Hi, Francine.
This is a result of an investigation on, and several violations of our ordinances, our criminal laws, from Taqueria de Sanchez. And in the course of accumulating all of these violations, they were also charged with B drinking, and that was B girls under the ordinance. So as this was going forward to Mayor's Court and also consideration to revoke their ABO license, a suit was filed in the 24th JDC claiming that that ordinance was unconstitutional because it referred to B girls instead of B drinkers or B boys and girls. And although there was a lot of basis for saying, no, that's ridiculous, it seemed to me it was just easier to change the term to B drinkers and avoid having to go to 24th and having a lawsuit over this. And then also by changing the term to B drinkers instead of B girls, it opens it up to males to be, in violation, and more importantly, it also now tracks how the state and the Jefferson Parish has their ordinance.
Okay, see, wasn't that a good explanation? Now we all understand what we're voting on. So thank you very much. Councilman Stagney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. As a result of that, when we pulled the licenses for both the Taqueria Sanchez's, nothing they did prohibited us from pulling the license. We didn't lose any portion of a case. Is that correct?
Exactly, because the license was pulled under numerous service calls for a variety of things: fighting, urination in public, damage to property. So there was enough in and of those.
And there were tremendous amount of service calls to our police department on both of those locations. I didn't want anybody out there to think that because of some language that may have looked sexually biased or that caused us to lose any case.
No, and that was also a consideration.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weeker.
Okay.
Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 13 is resolutions and motions by council members. We have none. Item 14 is items removed from the consent agenda. We have none. Item 15 is acceptance of contracts and similar matters approved by the mayor. Item 15A is summary ordinance number 11,663, an ordinance approving an agreement with Meyer Engineers LTD in an amount not to exceed $200,000 for professional services associated with the review of Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport expansion projects for compliance with applicable City of Kenner ordinances.
Motion by Councilman Carroll, second by Councilman Stagney. Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. I want to thank my colleagues on the council for deferring this at last meeting. I did have some questions, and I'm going to ask a few questions on the record. Ms. Vallow, the amount of money that is collected for these permits and plan review fees and all, do you have a dollar amount about what this is going to be for the airport?
Right now, we don't have any plans that have been submitted, but just based on a rough calculation, we're talking in excess of a couple of $1 million. And again, we have to look at a building permit, then you have mechanical, you have gas permits, and we haven't received any of the plans yet, so it's difficult to get a rough estimate at this point as to what the project encompasses. But the last time I looked in the paper, it looked like the actual terminal construction project itself was somewhere in the neighborhood of $650 million. You're looking at just plan review, 0.1% of that $650 million.
Okay, and I have a question for Mr. Quigley. Did we look into possibly partnering with Jefferson Parish's planning department instead of doing this process here?
Yes, we did. And as a matter of fact, City Attorney Louis Gruntz talked to Tiffany Wilkin about it, and she said that, to their records, the biggest project they've ever had, I think, was either the Galleria or the Lakeway Center, which is about a $40 million project, and they said they would be overwhelmed by a project of this scope. So they said they would be doing the same things as we're doing. As a matter of fact, after Katrina, they were so overwhelmed that they ended up hiring engineering firms for each district to issue permits. So they would be in the same boat as us, and obviously they're much bigger than they do. I think they have like 3 commercial plan reviewers. We only have 1 plan reviewer. That's Maurice Price. So they would be overwhelmed too. So to answer your question, they said they would not be able to assist us, and they'd pretty much be doing the exact same thing that we're doing. But I think over and beyond that, I'm sorry I wasn't here in the beginning, when we did the SOQ, we did an SOQ to get to this point, and Meyer was the #1 rated firm in regard to the SOQ. That's why we've submitted their name for y'all's approval. But in the notice, in addition to the things that Amy was just talking about, I just want to talk about some of the things that they will be doing. Help us to facilitate, ensure all zoning and all applicable codes are complied. For instance, they're going to have to do a conditional use. Mr. Hebert can elaborate on the fact that he would also be overwhelmed. This isn't just going to be helping the code department. This is going to be assisting the planning department. It's going to be assisting Jose in regard to this overwhelming project. And, this will have a major impact on Kenner. So we're going to make sure that they are going to monitor all traffic concerns, drainage. And let me just stop at drainage right now. I can tell you that and I'm sure a lot of y'all know already, that we're already out front of the drainage issue. We've had numerous meetings with Jefferson Parish officials, with our council members, just about the drainage. Drainage will be a major part of this. Myers will be helping us with that. We have issues about how they're going to pump the water, whether they're going to do it independently, whether they're going to join into the parish system. So I can tell you that we've well out in front of the drainage issue. We've had numerous meetings specifically just about drainage, but Jose himself can't just handle that. I mean, he's the only engineer that we have. So they will be helping us oversee the whole drainage project. You got sewerage issues, you got the flood elevation issues, you got noise issues, you got environmental issues, you got the conditional use. There's a myriad of things that they'll have impact on the city of Kenner. So, you know, the fact that, we're really not going to be paying for this. I mean, it's going to come out of the substantial fees that they're going to be paying. So we're not really going to be paying for this. We capped it at $200,000. I know we've had meetings. That's just an estimate right now as to what we think, you know, would be an amount. The airport plans on cutting the ribbon on this project in May of 2018. So this is going to be at least 4 years. So this contract is for 4 years. They will be assisting us all the way to making sure that the best interest of Kenner, the citizens of Kenner, are maintained by this massive project. So, you know, we really need the help. And as to start off the question, yes.
Yeah.
We've talked to the parish. They said that, you know, they would not really be able to offer any assistance with this, and they'd pretty much be doing the same thing as we're doing. And again, you know, that this wouldn't really impact our general fund, the fees that we'll be getting because of both for the conditional use and the various permits would offset any cost that we have with this. This is not a lump sum. When we put out the public notice, we provided the attachment that has the direct cost that they can charge, and they agreed to do that. Another key point is that when this SOQ went out, let me read what it says. The person or firms under consideration must certify with an attached sworn statement that they will not be part of the design consultant team that will design any portion of Louis Armstrong New Orleans International Airport plan known as the Long-Term Airport Development Project. This will include any past, current, or future design work directly or indirectly related to the project. So they have a sworn affidavit. They will not be involved with any type of design on behalf of the airport, because obviously that would be a conflict of interest. So they've got a sworn statement to that. So essentially, they will be representing us. You know, we wanted to be sure that there was no type of conflict of interest, that they could be designing something and they'd be overseeing it. So they will be completely independent. They will be working on our behalf or as our agents in regard to protecting the best interests of the citizens of Kenner.
And they're going to be billing us on an hourly basis, so we're not upfronting any money. In other words, once the plans are submitted for review, that's when things are going to start, you know,
Right.
charges are going to start coming in on us.
Correct.
Okay. I think I'm going to pass it on because I know we have some
Thank
other
you.
questions.
I just want to ask one thing. You know, the big question when this came up was in light of the fact that we've been told that it's $695,000 to possibly $1 million that the city's going to be getting in permit fees. When we capped this out, am I right on that? I saw you shaking your head. Did I misunderstand?
No, ma'am. Just based on, like, just the plan review, that's
Okay.
0.1% of $650 million for the terminal project. So you're talking substantial, you know, it could be in excess of that because we're not taking into consideration HVAC, gas, the mechanical, the other things that go along with it. Each little trade has a different permitting fee. So it's, again, we haven't received any plans, so
Right.
each circuit is a cost.
Well,
So-
I'm just saying that when you consider that, and you said you had a cap of 200,000, when you made that cap at 200,000, did you take all of that into consideration? That because what I'm thinking about is I'm not going to be here. You know, I'm retiring in 3 months. I'm worried about that coming back. You know how I feel about change orders. That they're going to come back and say, "Oh, look, it's exceeded the 200,000," and I know that's what Mr. Reynaud initially had concerns about. But
Well,
I want to make sure that y'all consider that.
Well,
when
this
you
is the
made
problem.
cap.
This is the problem, that typically, when you do an engineering or an architectural contract, there's a curve that they use, and it's based on how much the building, or how much the project cost, and there's this curve that they use that you determine a fee, and you do a lump sum fee, and they agree to do the lump sum fee, and then it's broken down into different divisions, and then they submit their invoices. This is not your typical contract. This isn't for them to do any design work. This is
I
doing it.
understand that, but they
Well,
will
I-
be
no,
getting paid by the
they're-
hour.
Right, but anyway, there's a chance that they may, this is an hourly, there's a chance we go less than 200. But yeah, there is a chance that they go over 200,000. You know, that was one of the things that we talked about earlier when we had the meetings. There's no way in the world that we have any idea right now as to the scope of what they're going to do. That wouldn't be a change order. I mean, it's just would be, you may have to amend the contract if this thing gets to the point where we need additional services. But at this point in time, this is not your typical type of contract that we do. We're asking them to essentially represent us, to be our eyes and ears, and to use their professional expertise. So,
Well, I understand we have to start somewhere.
right.
And that's,
And
I'm
the
gonna, I'm gonna prove
$200,000, it's just an educated guess as to, putting a cap on the contract. But again, it's not a lump sum. We'll have control over that. Like I said, when we did the SOQ, we gave them the DOTD standard attachment A that does the rates for professional service agreements. So they had to agree to use that in the first place, and which they've agreed to do. And every bill that comes in will have documentation as to who did the work and what the work was. So, I mean, we'll have oversight to make sure that the things that they do were authorized by us, and it's documented that what the services were provided. So, again, unlike a lump sum type of contract, this is different. Now, one of the things I know, a couple of meetings, Councilman Stagney has expressed concerns about if they're doing any type of inspections, that you'd have to be a CBO. One of the things, we are still going to do a lot of the inspections. I know James Muhammad has expressed interest in doing that, and we certainly are going to, we are going to take an active part in the inspections. But if, in the event, since this is so big, if we do need inspections, two things. First of all, anybody that is a PE or a registered architect is already certified as a CBO. And Mr. Meyer has already agreed that if, in event, we do use any type of inspectors that aren't PEs or are not certified architects, he is going to have them certified to be chief building officer. So I know that was some of the questions asked to him, and he's already made arrangements that anybody that would be doing inspections would be certified as a CBO. But again, that's not something we're not going to do. And we are going to be involved in inspections, but since it's such a big project, and
The largest we've ever had.
yeah, well, it's like I said, when we talked to the parish, they talked about the Galleria and the Lakeway Center, more like $40 million project. So this is quite overwhelming. But
Tell me something, where will the monies that are collected on the permit fees, will that money be, it's going to be a large amount. Will that money be put into the operating budget, or should?
that'll just be part of our revenues like anything else.
As I
And
was
then as
gonna
we do the
say-
budget, we'll
I'd like
we'll
to-
decide
I'd
where
like
it's
to
spent.
Plant a little seed that maybe if it's the substantial amount, that we dedicate that to capital, because we always need capital.
Well,
And not
I guess
putting
that-
an operating budget where it might
That will
go.
impact our revenues, and like every year, Duke does, as he's doing right now, he's projecting them revenues for next year, so
Right.
we'll see.
Well, it might be something for the future council to think about, because if it's going to amount to a substantial amount of money, it might be worth, trying to dedicate that money to where we know it's going to be put into things that will improve our city. So, all right, Councilman Stagney. Thought I'd never shut up, huh?
Thank you, Madam President. Did we do any analysis of the cost, the pie in the sky number of 200,000 versus, hiring several plan reviewers and doing it in-house? Have we done any analysis?
Well,
on that?
yeah, we thought about that, but this is essentially a 4-year project, and when we thought about it was that once you hire somebody, then down the line, what are you going to do with them? Because they'd have to be civil service, and then we'd have extra employees, and then 4 years from now, we wouldn't have anything to do, wouldn't be able to do anything with them. So yeah, it's something we did talk about or thought about, but due to the fact that this is just, you know, a finite type of a project that after it's over with, you know, you don't want to fire somebody, you know, we'd have them, and then essentially we'd be looking at terminating somebody, and you really don't want to do that. And then plus on top of that, you know, this thing, they put together a team. I mean, they've gone outside of it. They've got other firms involved, and a lot of this is going to require specialized professional training. Like, for instance, with planning, in the SOQ, we told them different requirements, what they had to do. So actually, they've included Tim Jackson on their team, and Tim Jackson's been here with UNO. He's a planner, and because a certain aspect of this is planning because of the conditional use. So Jay's already on record that he cannot possibly do everything that's going to be necessary. So he's got a planner. So there's so many things, so many different disciplines that we'd have probably had to hire because of this thing being so big. You know, it wasn't like you could just hire one extra person or something like that. I mean, you're going to need, you know, civil people. Like when I went through the whole thing, you got traffic, drainage, sewerage, flood.
I understand, but you didn't do any analysis.
Oh, yes, absolutely, absolutely.
All right, let me ask you this. Is the money that's going to be submitted as part of the plan review, because if it's 1/10 of 1%, it's estimated at $650 million, that's $650,000. Is that money dedicated towards this contract? Are you going to be pulling the money out of the plan review portion of it, or the other permitting fees that they would have to get? Because there's other
One way or the other, it'll be coming from the fees that code's going to be charged. Unfortunately, the planning fees aren't very significant. We talked about that, and we may have to do some adjustments, but it'll come out of the fees that code.
The plan review fees only?
No.
I mean, my worry is, you know, we talked about it, and in the contract, it clearly says that you can go above $200,000, but you need approval from the Kidder City Council. What I'd hate to see is the planning review fees not be able to cover what the engineer has to do to make this work. Let me ask you this. Is the airport going to submit all of this as one giant project, or are they going to do this in phases?
I suspect it's going to have to be phases, yes.
And you don't think that you believe we're so inundated, or this is going to be so much that even if they submit it in phases, we can't do this in-house?
Absolutely.
Okay. The last meeting, the mayor said, when I asked this question, I wanted to make sure, because of a problem we had with the electrical panels on the sewage lift stations, if Kenner was going to inspect. And he had said yes, and now you're changing that a little bit, saying that we intend to inspect, but the engineer may
Assist.
Supplement. Are they going to be ICC certified?
They'll be certified with whatever certifications are necessary, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Under services in section 2, number 10, am I to read that the engineer under this contract has unilateral authority to change the fee structure of review fees, or maybe even, well, maybe even permitting fees, but definitely review fees? I don't think that anybody can be afforded that right, as, you know, that's what this body does. Number 10, section 2 under services, number 10, amend the Kenner permit application fee for cost of review. I mean, if there was a way that language bothers me. because I think we've set fees according to what you're saying, the 1/10 or 1% for review.
That's just one fee. That's plan review. You have the initial building permit, the application.
No, I'm well aware of that. What I'm saying is, are we affording a contractor that we're giving a contract to change our fee structure without it coming before this
No.
body?
Well, no, absolutely not. You know, we could probably amend that to say, make recommendations.
If y'all could clean that up, because I don't think y'all mean that, and that would afford some really
Well, no, that's
problematic issues.
That's not even possible.
Number 16, under the same thing, when you talked about, under services, you talked about monitoring the general compliance of the plans. Again, I hope we can do as many inspections with our city, with people who are certified. Under the document section, I think this is problematic for media sources and for people who sit up here when these projects go on. If documents are submitted, I believe at some point they become a public record. Essentially, Section 3 shields those documents from becoming a public record, and it stays as the consultant's work product. I don't know if there's something you guys can do with the language there, but I think that is problematic when a consultant can shield the documents that people want to see what's happening at the airport. And if you have a contract with somebody who says, listen, anything that I get and I'm reviewing is part of my work file and my product, I believe that's problematic. There's some, again, you should expect it that at some point it would go above 200,000. Under Section 5, the budget limitation, it's not applicable, but it does say that it has to come before the council, so you have a check and balance on that. Let me say this, that I'm going to vote for this. I think some language needs to be cleaned up before moving forward on it from the administrative side. For the general public, we have 14 eyes on this that we've never had before on these types of contracts. And that's because in 2012, we passed 2 charter amendments. One of 2 addressed contracts above $100,000. And it is imperative that the general public knows what they're getting for the money, for what we're spending of their money. And that's evident here, and that will be evident moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and vote for this. I think there's some language that needs to be cleaned up to make sure that it is transparent to anybody who wants to look at the projects that are moving forward. And also, I would ask the administration to take a strong look at the language that appears to allow the consultant to change the plan review fee. So that's all I would have to say, and I will vote for it. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilman Stagney. Let's see. Okay, since I was the next to speak in order, and I was at these meetings, and I can tell you that the first thing of concern, for the citizens of Kenner is twofold. Number one is that all of the drainage is properly handled. We have been knowing for quite some time that since 1992 that there's been a deficiency caused by the airport being there, and of course it's a report that their own engineers said, and of course, many times we have tried to get them to come to the table to fund this additional drainage. And of course, now that you're going to have this north terminal coming, you're going to have a larger footprint that's not going to be absorbing water. So hopefully that they do address this. I've been in those meetings with Mr. Quigley and the mayor and the airport, and I can tell you that I'm going to stand firm to what I said in that meeting. I'm not going to approve any project until that drainage is handled first. The second thing, too, is, the one thing that I requested last time, I know we talked about this, is there is a little bit of a disconnect or a timing disconnect, what's going to happen with the airport and North Terminal move, and then by the time the DOTD gets the I-10 Loyola District 1A, if I want to say that. Before, I'd just like to see how that's all going to pan out as far as the ground transportation and the ground movement's going to be, because there's going to be a period of time that those off-ramps and on-ramps and flyover ramps are not going to be there. So that's something of concern that we need to take a look at.
If you don't mind, I'd like to comment on that. Matter of fact, we have a meeting tomorrow morning about that. Aberdeen Street, there's two parts to this. There's a long-term plan and a short-term plan.
Correct.
The long-term plan, which is what you're referring to, is the new interchange, the proposed new interchange on Loyola, which will come after the terminal is built. So that could be anywhere from 7 to 10 years. So the short-term plan is what we need to address right now. And we're already working with the Regional Planning Commission. I can tell you that Aberdeen Street, for all practical purposes, is going to become on the, what is the Federal Highway Administration Network System. So now it's eligible for FHWA funding. So that is already being done. And then there's also some talk about us swapping and making it a state highway so that it'll make it easier to get funding and so forth. So we're already working with the RPC to get out ahead of that because of the fact that that's going to be the main thoroughfare in and out of the airport. Now, of course, you can still, we'll be able to come in and out on Bainbridge, but Aberdeen Street, which is ultimately is Loyola, is going to be the main ingress and egress to the airport when it's reconfigured. So we've already had meetings with Walter Brooks. We're already making plans, and I think the good news is that they've gotten it on the Federal Highway Administration network, so that they can get that federal dollars in there to upgrade it. So initially, the short-term plan will be able to get the people in and out of the airport efficiently and effectively.
And I know this is just something, first of all, I'm going to be voting for this today. I think it's a move forward and move in the right direction and because this is going to be one tremendous impact to not only jobs creation, but commerce in Kenner with this move with this new airport terminal to North Kenner. But the one thing that I do know that when I want to stress in those meetings, of course, and we talk about that, they do hire hopefully a local firm that can take a look at that traffic and not hire somebody out of Shreveport and Monroe just because they're next in line to get some business out of the state. I want somebody that has a vested interest, and hopefully we can convey that message to the DOTD and RPC. Once again, I'm going to be supporting this. This is going to be a tremendous impact, and for Kenner, and it's going to be one heck of a project. I mean, 800. By the time you include all the road work, it's about $850 million. This is a staggering improvement of what's going to happen in North Kenner. Thanks.
Councilwoman DeFrancis, you have the floor.
Thank you, Council President. I just want to go over something that Councilman Dinopoulos mentioned, and that is the drainage problem. Councilman Carroll and I have attended every airport meeting. I know Councilman Dinopoulos and I attended the meeting at Councilman Zahn's office in Jefferson Parish, along with the airport people and their engineers and et cetera. And that was one of the main issue that we pounded, and this issue is not just the future issue of drainage problems that could and would be created when the airport expands, but also that the airport has to address the past drainage issues, which have never truly been addressed properly. So we made that very, very clear, that is absolutely imperative that be done. But having said that, I think we need to concentrate on moving forward right now. And there are a couple of issues. Ms. Valette, would you please mention how exactly the permitting fees are going to be assessed? We talked about that at our meeting that we had.
We have set permit fee schedules for each thing. So like I had indicated previously here, just the building permit itself, the fee is $30 for the first $1,000 that is on the project, and then it's $5 for every $1,000 thereafter. So that's just the building permit.
And we're talking about when you multiply that out.
Correct, yes, ma'am. And then you have to go through each of the different trades. You have HVAC, you have your gas, you have your plumbing, you have your electrical. Then additionally, you have to also consider, once the terminal is developed, you're going to have your little stores within the terminal. That's going to be an additional fees as well. And to kind of reiterate with you, it's not, the fees for Meyer and Associates won't be coming just from plan review. It's from whatever is collected from the airport project. That's my understanding. Mr. Quigley, am I correct?
So the $200,000 is not coming out of our regular budget. I want to make that clear to the public.
No, ma'am. It will be coming from whatever fees are collected from the airport through code enforcement.
And we've got to be honest with the public. This is just a tentative figure. Normally, we do not like to do change orders, but we're really not talking about a typical change order. We had to come up with a figure. Right now, we had to come up with a figure in order to move forward. If we didn't have a figure in this ordinance, we couldn't move forward. So we understand that based on on the expenses, based on the amount of revenue collected, based on so many different factors, that's going to determine how many hours they're going to have to put in to address those issues, and therefore will determine whether or not we have to go past that $200,000 mark cap that we have, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to make that very clear so later on, no one feels that they were, not told the whole story. So this is a very, very tentative figure that probably will change. Am I correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And Mr. Quigley, would you mention the committee that evaluated the different, the Myers Company as well as others? Who were the members of that committee so that the public knows?
Yeah, we publicized the SOQ, and we received SOQs, and it was evaluated by myself, J.A. Bear, and then when Keith Conley was the acting code director, he was part of the evaluation.
Okay, and they were ranked number 1, is that correct?
Yes, Meyer was ranked number 1 by the evaluators.
Okay, I wanted to make that very clear to everyone. We talked about whether we should have hired people in-house to monitor. I want to go to Mr. Grunt for a minute, who was in Jefferson Parish. The biggest project we talked about in Jefferson Parish was $40 million.
Correct.
And what did Jefferson Parish have to do in order to, to move forward on that project? To make it a viable project and address those issues?
I didn't go into those specific details because they were able to handle that project in-house. But after Katrina, when there was numerous projects throughout the parish, they had to hire an engineer for each council district to issue commercial building permits for those councilmanning districts. So it was just overwhelming after Katrina, which is more on the scale of what we're going to face here, other than comparing it with the Galleria, which was a one project, small. It was large for us, but at the time, but it was small compared to this project.
So 40 million they could handle.
Right.
But after Katrina, when those projects again became much more costly, they had to take another avenue in order to address them.
That's
and Mr. Quigley just pointed out as well that if you're going to hire qualified people, you have to pay them. You're not going to have someone come in who isn't qualified to do the work. That's number one. Number two, they know it's a short-term project. They're not going to want to come in very readily for a short-term project where they will have to be fired at the end of the project, because this is not a permanent position. So you have to take all of that into account. But I want to go back to another point, too. I know I'm jumping from points, but these were points that were unclear, perhaps, in our discussion. We talked about giving permits. We talked about, again, inspections, because we do inspections as we go along. I can tell you, I am very proud to have James Mohammed on our staff. I think he's wonderful. I think he's so competent, and I trust him totally. And can he really, on his own, do all of that?
No, ma'am, I think he would have some trouble doing everything, as much as I think he would like to do it all by himself. But no, he would certainly need the assistance.
Could you mention what we discussed at the meeting as to what the role of Myers Engineering would be in, relations to working with Mr. Mohammed and the inspections?
If we need it in the event that Mr. Mohammed and his inspectors were unable to handle some things, they would be willing to step in and assist with any types of inspections.
So the key word was assist.
To assist, yes.
That's what I wanted to point out. They are not taking charge. They are
No.
not in control. Mr.
No.
Muhammad would be in control.
Yes, and-
Their role would be one of assistance.
Yes.
And I trust him, and that's why I wanted to put that point on the record, that he is the one that will be representing the city and doing the inspections in total.
Yes, ma'am.
Another point I wanted to make where, we talk about I'm going to round it off to 6 million because it's just easier to do that. Even if we were to divide it in phases, we're talking about each of those 4 phases be $150 million project. Think about what we're talking about, $150 million project. Do we really believe that we could do everything that needs to be done in-house? I think you have to be realistic. I want this project to be done correctly. I want to make sure that those issues that Councilman Dinopoulos and I mentioned are addressed. I want to make sure that the design work is done correctly. I want to make sure that the construction is done correctly. This is a major project that will impact all of us for more years than you can count. And we have to make sure that we do due diligence on our part to make sure that the city of Kenner and its people are protected and that it moves forward correctly, effectively, and on time if at all possible, so that that May 2018 date is not just a pipe dream. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And obviously, there's been a lot of discussion among all of us about this, and I'm not trying not to be redundant in saying some of the things that have been said already. But like Mr. Quigley said, we have gone to these meetings with the airport to address the drainage, but not only the drainage, but the sound, the pollution, and more importantly, to me, I believe, is the traffic, which he said will take between 7 and 10 years. So it's a lot of things, a lot of balls in the air that we have to address. It is said that they will be done within 4 years. I tend to think that's kind of ambitious. Thank you, Councilman Stagg. Ambitious, at least. 4 years is not that long away, and we will see. I mean, I hope it is, but I have doubts about that. So, and also Councilman Raynard said about checking with Jefferson Parish, and which we did. But I believe sometime, and this is my personal opinion, that we tend to defer to the parish too much, that we depend on them to do our work for us, and that is not the case. We are the city of Kenner. We've been here for a long time. We can do a lot of things. We have a lot of expertise. But when it comes to something like this, that is almost $600 million, which will increase, I can almost promise you, it's much more than we can handle from within our city, our employees. They are good, but it comes down to a point where you just cannot do humanly things that only one person or a group of people can do. So I believe to get a company to do this, it's fantastic. I believe that based on a $200,000 contract, we're not quite sure. It is going to be based on hours. Each individual person will have a different pay rate depending on what their specialty is, which means that I believe that to hire someone with an expertise will kind of put us in a bad situation, I believe, to probably pay more. And the number one goal is to assure from an administrative standpoint that we do not eat up all of our profit paying administrative costs, which is the case here. And I got to thank my counterpart, Ms. Black. It's beginning to rub off on me about the change orders. This is something that is important that we should always look into, because at the end of the day, we can wake up and realize, even though we made a lot of money, it went out the back door to some consultant. And that is important for us to do. We had a meeting today with Councilman Raynard, Councilwoman DeFrancis, about putting in something, and I believe we should do this tonight, that this contractor reports on a 6-month basis to let us know what is going on so we can see what are some of the things he's been doing and to project some things that we may have to cost and pay for. So that way we know they just don't show up one day to tell us, okay, it's going to cost an additional, $100,000 or whatever. We should put that into place so we can get that information from them. I think we should do that. Mr. Quigley was at the meeting also. The contractor understood our concerns. Mr. Quigley, you wanted to address this right now before I finish?
In the services, number 12 says attend meetings, project conferences, public hearings, et cetera, on an as-needed basis. So it's part of their supplementary, it's part of their services to do that.
Yeah. as-needed basis sometimes tend to,
Well,
yeah, I mean.
all you
I
got to do
think-
is ask, and they'll be here.
Well, I think we should put it in there to say that we set the terms of when they should come.
Well,
That's my opinion, that we should,
well, it says it in the contract, and I'm sure anytime any council member wants a report, that they'll be here to do it.
so all it would take is for one council person to request them to report to us?
Yeah, because it's part of their services.
Okay, I just want to make sure that, and hopefully we will be doing that and letting them know to be able to come and to be able to prepare their report, not just on initial stuff, but projections, the plans, to see exactly what are some of the things that they're seeing that we should be prepared for if it arrived to that. And I think some of the comments from Councilman Stagnant, just to be sure that the documentation is available to the city of Kenner, not just to one entity. Also, we are in control of the changes for the application fee that have to be clearly understood, that have to be into the contract, that we are running the ship and no one else is. Ms. Val, you said that, we will be in charge of the inspections, but it may take support from someone else to help us, depending on how large this gets and how fast it's going on, which is great, but we are still going to be in control
Correct.
of the inspection.
I met with Myers and Associates and their team. They did a flow chart. Code enforcement's on the top of the flow chart.
Great.
So we will be in charge of this as opposed to Meyer and Associates. They're
So-
here to assist us.
Correct. And like we said, this is something that very few cities has the opportunity to be part of this. We are blessed to have it. But it is our due diligence, as Councilwoman DeFrancis said, to stay on top of this and to be transparent and to let the public know that we are reaping the benefits from this and not slipping away from us. So I think we all agree to that. Some things we just don't know. I think Mr. Quigley is correct. 200,000, is it a fair number? I think it's somewhere to start. But as Ms. Black always said, we have to monitor that to ensure, things are not just going crazy against us. So I think we're all on the same page. I think we look forward to enjoying all of the benefits that this will give to the city of Kenner and everything as it relates to the business community and to our community. The 7 to 10 years, that's kind of distressing, but progress takes time sometime. And I think as long as we have some plans into place to assure that it will not become a burden to the community with whatever the traffic plans we are addressing right now, I think at the end of the day, it will be a win-win for us. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Carroll. Ms. Vallet, did you have to, your light was on at one point. Did you wish to speak? Or Mr. Grunts, did you wish to
It was
speak?
just to go back.
Oh, just a
Mr.
moment. Let me
Stagnant.
give you the mic.
It was just the Stagnant's concern about paragraph 10 and discussing with Ms. Vallow. That's just a flexible rate that is available, and she can correct me if I'm misstating it, that the city has, and they would be assisting us in making those recommended changes for the city or for the airport to pay those fees. It's not that they're going to amend anything with respect to their fee or to the airport fee. It's to work with the code enforcement office in doing it.
We have, the ordinance addresses, we have an ordinance that addresses, in the event that, they give us a cost or something, and it exceeds that, and we've only charged them, we have a right to go back and say, these were additional things that you should have been charged for within the permit. So it gives you the opportunity, the opportunity to review that, to make certain that those fees are included within it. It's not to Meyer and Associates, but to the airport for permitting fees, to review that. Is that
So for example, if they're saying their project now is worth $650 million, say it's $750 million and they've only paid a fee for the $650, we can go back and adjust that fee upward to the $750. And they would be assisting us in doing that.
Mr. Stagnant, your mic's not, let me put your mic on. Okay.
No, I don't have a problem with it, but it clearly says amend the Kenner permit application fee for cost of the review. I don't think that language needs to be there if you're talking about an ordinance we already have on the books that clearly says we're going to charge them 0.1%, and it comes in at $750 instead of $650. It gives the illusion that the consultant can change the price of the permitting fee. That's what it says. I'm just asking the administration to clean up that language just to make sure there's no, so that it's not confusing in any way.
The intent of the amendment is to go from the 650 to 750, not to go from 1% to 2%, is what I'm saying.
Right. Well, but I mean, that's pretty clear. If you say something is a percentage, if the number moves, the amount you get moves. You're not saying that in this. This clearly says that it can change. So that's no problem. I mean, I think we're on the same page. We understand. Thank you, Madam President.
So that's what I'm going to say now. Okay, I'm sorry. Are you done? Okay, I just, I was thinking about this just now. We have approved things not to exceed $750,000, not to exceed $500,000, and no flags went up. But due to the fact that we know how much fees are going to be coming into the permits, you actually made this figure too low. And a lot of things that, hey, it's impossible that they're going to be able, they can't do it for $200,000. So change orders are going to start coming in, and that's what alerted, I think, a lot of my colleagues up here. I have no problem approving this, but the flag went up. Well, we're going to be getting all these permit fees, and they're going to do this for $200,000. Well, I know what's going to happen. They're going to come back to us for another change order. So I think all of this is really a moot subject because, we know that anytime any councilman wants somebody to come back up and give us an explanation, all we have to do is say, put on the agenda, I'd like Meyer and Associates to come and give us a breakdown of what's been going on. But that is the whole thing in a nutshell as to why there's been so much discussion, because we have approved things not to exceed 750, as I said, in a $500,000. So I think all of this discussion was good, but that's how I perceive why there's been so much discussion on this tonight. Do you agree?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
I love the way you think. All right, Ms. Stacy, did you wish to discuss this matter? Please come give your full name and address. You have 3 minutes.
Stacy Alessandro, 3309 Chateau Boulevard. I just wanted to ask, our ordinances are our ordinances. They are what they are. They're the rules. So those shouldn't change. When these people who were preparing this project for us to review, they know what our rules are going to be flat out. So really, they should be presenting us with a proposal that meets our rules. Now, if they submit it to us, I'm just going to use one portion, say drainage. If they submit the drainage proposal to us and Myers reviews it and it doesn't meet our ordinances, so we send it back to them and say, it doesn't meet our ordinances, you have to change this or that, and then they send it back to us for a review again, I'm fine with that. But I think that at that point, if it then again does not meet our ordinances, why should we have to keep paying to review the same thing over and over? I think we should maybe put in there that we'll review it once, and if it doesn't meet it, we'll send it back. And when it comes back, if it doesn't meet it again, then New Orleans, the airport is responsible for the fees to review these plans multiple times. So,
May I address that?
Absolutely.
If there is a change in plan review and we kick it back to the airport, they're assessed the airport is assessed another fee for the additional plan review. It's no cost to us.
okay, but then it's got to come back to Myers, who has to review it again, and then we're paying them by the hour, so then we're paying them again. So I just want to make sure that, we're not out any money for this multiple reviews, that whatever they're paying is going to cover our costs of having to review it more than the initial time and then the next time.
Well, that would be the specific reason for which we would have Meyer and Associates there, is in the event that there is errors with what they submit to us, because they have the expertise, and that's exactly why we would pay them to do what we've engaged them to do. And as the councilwoman had said, is that this contract is low. It could be less, it could be more, but given the size of this project, you're talking about just the terminal building itself being somewhere in the neighborhood of $650 million project. So I don't expect that we're going to have plans about this amount. We're going to have rooms, boxes and boxes of plans that are going to be submitted to us. And there will be error, possibly
Right.
on the part of the airport. That's what we're engaging Myers and Associates to do, is make sure that it is appropriate and complies with our ordinances. And if it doesn't, they have that. And again, if the airport has to resubmit, they're going to be paying the cost of that resubmittal, and all the fees for Meyer and Associates will be from the permitting process. So Myers and Associates will be paid from building fees. And if the airport has increased review plans, then Meyer and Associates will look at it, or our internal people will look at it as well. So it's again, no cost to the city. It's coming from the permitting fees.
Well, I understand that, but are the fees that we're going to charge them, say the plans come in and they don't meet our ordinances, we send it back. They have to resubmit it to us with an additional fee for resubmitting those new plans. Is that fee that they're resubmitting to us going to be enough to cover what we're paying Myers to review these plans again?
Yes.
So that's absolutely going to happen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. That's all I wanted to make sure, was that, because I think this figure is way too low. I think it could probably quadruple easily over time. And I just don't want to see where it's going, where they're submitting plans and they're going back and forth many times. And because really it should be submitted correctly the first time. They have a whole team of engineers. They know what our ordinance is. It should come to us correctly the first time.
Thank
I just
you,
don't want us
Stacy.
back and forth.
Thank you. Appreciate your input. All right. Hearing no other discussion, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15B is summary ordinance number 11,667, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Vehicle Parts and Equipment Company Incorporated in the amount of $5,390 for the purchase and installation of 10 Havas or equal consoles with mounts, mic clips, and map lights in accordance with letter bid number 14-1511 for the Kenner Police Department.
Motion by Councilwoman DeFrancis, second by Councilman Denopoulos. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15C is summary ordinance number 11,668, an ordinance accepting the lowest responsive bid received from Vehicle Parts and Equipment Company Incorporated in the amount of $14,215 for the purchase and installation of 10 Pro Guard or equal push bumpers, partitions, seat protectors, and cargo barriers in accordance with letter bid number 14-1510 for the Kenner Police Department.
Motion by Councilman DeFrancis, second by Councilman Denopoulos. Please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 15D is summary ordinance number 11,669, an ordinance approving the purchase of Wheelan emergency lights, sirens, accessories, and installation from Vehicle Parts and Equipment Company Incorporated in the amount of $29,870, utilizing state contract number 408186 for the Kenner Police Department. Madam Chairman, we've received a request this evening to remove this item from the agenda, please.
Okay, motion by Councilman Stagney, second by Councilman Reno to remove, Councilman Stagney, second by Councilwoman DeFrancis. I missed the cue. Thank you. Please vote on the removal.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0 to remove the item from the agenda. Item 15E is summary ordinance number 11,670, an ordinance approving change order number 1 to the contract with Bow Brothers Construction Company, LLC, regarding repairs to the Williams Boulevard boat launch, seal bid number 13-6154, which increases the contract amount by $28,569.97.
Motion by Councilman Reno, second by Councilman Denopoulos. Councilman Reno, you have the floor.
Thank you,
Explain.
Madam Chair. Mr. Maracoli, can you give us, tell us why we're spending an extra $28,000 on this
Please.
project?
Basically, what happened was, when they started the construction and started to remove the first ramp, or the ramp that we were doing, they found some cement structure underneath the existing piers. And they couldn't get in there with the excavators, so they had to go in, they had to get other things and have it demolished in other ways. They actually had to get a dive team to go out there and get some of that material removed and things so that they can go in there. The additional costs were incurred because of the additional items with the structure that was unknown until they started removing the ramp itself.
And the original contract was in the amount of approximately?
I want to say it was about $125,000.
Okay, so this is a substantial change order here.
Correct.
The base on that new ramp, the damaged ramp, is it constructed the same way as the old ramp was constructed?
It's a little bit different. It's, they have these panels were put together, and then they were brought in after, and put into place, where that was, it had a little bit different. They did this while the water, didn't close off the entire, ramp and everything to that nature. So there is some differences. However, that this material, we believe, through all our engineering and everything that they've done, is going to be a whole lot better material, better, more durable and things, so it should last a lot longer than what we have currently.
Okay, and the foundation underneath that ramp, there's no pilings or anything that was driven underneath that?
Not in this section, but and this is where the problems came into the existing area where the pilings for the piers were in place. That was where the issues came in place. But there is no pilings underneath the ramp itself. There's a base structure that they put in, and then they put the ramps on top of the base structure.
Okay, thank you. I will ask everybody to approve this.
Thank you. Councilman Carroll, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. And this is not so much detail about the project in Councilman Reno's district. I guess it's more or less to do with in which we'll be having a lot in the future, the change orders. And Mr. Maracoli, the process normally, and maybe I'm just missing it, but for any change order, normally I don't find out about it until it's put into our agenda. Now, I would like to hear about it before then. I'm not sure if everyone else agree with that, but what is the process as far as the change orders? When do you know about it, and when are we informed about it?
Well, typically what we do is, once we get notified of a change order, we go through and make sure that all the change orders that they have are correct, and it's an accurate thing that needs to be a change order. Typically what we'll do is we'll go through the process, the administration will approve it, and then we put it on the agenda. In this case, would be my era that I should contact y'all, once I'm aware and we approve it, to notify, the council to do that. I failed to do that in this case.
So this was just one isolated case as far as...
I'm not saying I've never did that in the past. I'm saying, but that's typically the processes should be, is once we're aware, then we notify you.
Okay, so from this point forward, and even though that's what we normally should do, that will be the process, so we don't get here and now
Matter of fact, I'll be calling you soon about a lighting project we're doing, about a change order, so.
Okay, well, I'm glad we talked about it now then. Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
No, in this case, it was my error not contacting everybody prior to this.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. Hearing no other discussion, please vote.
Madam Chairman, motion passes 6-0. Item 16 is ordinances and resolutions in summary for first reading. Item 16A is an ordinance approving the lease of a certain portion of ground fronting on Veterans Boulevard and measuring 195 feet by 45 feet 7 inches adjacent to Lot B, Square 329 and 330, Highway Park Subdivision, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana. Item 16B is an ordinance amending ordinance number 2427, the City of Kenner Comprehensive Zoning Ordinance, adopted on December 4th, 1978, by rezoning Lot 21, Square 5, Hanson City Subdivision, Kenner, Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, from C1PO Neighborhood Commercial Planned Option to R2 Two-Family Residential, and approving the plan of the re-subdivision of lots 21 and 22, Square 5, Hanson City Subdivision, Kenner Jefferson Parish, Louisiana, into Lot 21A. Item 16C is an ordinance authorizing a public hearing and approving amendment number 2 to the fiscal year 2007 Home Investment Partnership Grant allocation from the Jefferson Parish Home Consortium to the City of Kenner for the Department of Community Development. Item 17 is reports from the council and/or special committees. Item 17A was taken earlier.
Councilman Stagney, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Gonzalez, I made a request 2 meetings ago. I've put up for some street work in Morningside Park, essentially everything from West Metairie to Airline, from Williams to Roosevelt Boulevard, for $125,000 for street work, and I know there's going to be more than that needed. When can we expect? I'm going to forward that. In fact, I think my assistant has already done that, forwarded the fund form to your office. I'd like to get started on that as soon as possible and at least get a listing from your office of what panels are needing replacement.
We are now in the process of delineating the number of panels and their locations. Once we establish that, we will get back to you, primarily for you to see what are we going to be doing out there. And in all likelihood, we're going to be doing this with our maintenance contractor because we're talking about an extensive amount of work. And we'll let you know, and we'll let you know whether the cost estimate is going to hold or not.
Well, and feel free to eat up the $125,000. My fear is that I don't know when that contract comes up again, and I'd like to move. All of these panels are just broken panels, you know, and I went over with Mr. Dillenkoff for several of them before he had left.
My recollection is that that contract expires, I believe, June 30th. Okay, now, they do have a lot of work right now. We're going to try to accomplish everything before the expiration date of that contract. And right now, you know, we're looking into either bidding that contract again, or if it's favorable for us, piggybacking one of the Jefferson Parish maintenance contracts.
Well, if it's possible, you know, I'd like to do that before the expiration of this contract.
Sure.
And I may even give you another section. I want to thank Veolia, JR, and Ms. Joanne for the last meeting. I showed a picture of 2023 Roosevelt Boulevard, a highly unsafe area. So we removed the cement. I think we're going to cut down the ring and then replace that sidewalk. In addition to that, across the street, I think we had Rick Hathaway check to see if they had any issues. It's 2020 Roosevelt regarding a crack from the street to the sidewalk, and there's a little slough off there, and there's a sewer manhole cover there and a drain within 2 feet. Can we have, Mr. Hathaway said that was there prior to their replacing the street panels there. Can we have your department, Mr. Gonzalez, look at whether that's a drainage or sewage issue?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, during the council meeting, I sent some emails to Jimmy Dennis and Veolia, JR, and Joanne, and they both going to be looking at it hopefully tomorrow, if not, you know, first thing on Monday, and we'll get back to you with the results of our investigation.
Thank you very much. Ms. Vallow, I sent an email today to your office. It's one of several emails that I've sent prior to you getting there regarding 3100 Maryland. Numerous complaints about too many people living in the house, anywhere between 6 and 8 vehicles parked at the residence. I've had no less than 6 people on the block complain about that house specifically prior to you getting here when Mr. Conley was the acting director. That household went to court. I don't know the outcome of that, but at 4 o'clock today, I got another phone call.
Maryland or Maine?
Oh, hold on, Maine. I am sorry, my bad.
Maine.
I said Maryland, it is Maine.
I believe I received that email at about 4, so I didn't have an opportunity to get with my inspectors, but we can certainly send somebody out there and see what's going on. Again, we did have this gentleman, and again, if memory serves me correctly, this gentleman did come in the court some time ago, But I'll give you a call first thing tomorrow morning, kind of give you an update, and we'll send
We're
another
going to have to
inspector
do
out there.
something, because what the gentleman does is he'll adhere to whatever you guys, the courts-
Violations and
yeah,
summons that we give. and
for a
he
short
goes on
period of
ahead.
time, and then it's gone so far that he will take and work on vehicles, and they will put shoe polish like a used car lot, and they're selling cars at 3100 Main. The neighbors are highly upset. It looks bad, and I guess I can get you some pictures of that.
They did remove the boat from the front yard,
Yes,
correct?
well, we got the boat. Yes, the boat is out.
I've driven past there personally, and I intend to do so again tomorrow, and I'll touch base with your office to see what we can get going on it.
I will give you some phone numbers of the residents that have complained, and maybe they can call you directly for a speedy response, because it's pretty obvious when they're all there at the house. It's a lot of people in one residence, too many vehicles. Lastly, I want to say that Ms. Alessandro brought up an excellent point, that the fee that is paid on the front end is the plan review fee, and depending on how many times you have to go back and forth with our contracted engineer, that could run up the cost. And that's why I asked earlier, is it only going to come out of the plan review fee, the consultant's cost, or, because there won't be a lot of profit there if they have to go back and forth many, many, many times. Typically, engineers get capped at, Mr. Quigley, you know this better than I do, 15%, whatever that figure is. I won't be here, but you'll have some people down the road. You may have to look at some type of cost containment just to make sure that the percentage of fees that we pay to our contractor doesn't go above a certain percentage of the total amount of money we receive from the airport, including review fees and permitting fees. So, Ms. Stacy, I thought you brought up an excellent point. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Councilman Stagney. Councilman Dinopoulos.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to mention that, obviously, it's Good Friday, it's during Lent, and St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Men's Club is hosting their annual Big Fish Fry. Of course, it's at the St. Elizabeth school site. It's tomorrow. Please come, and please come hungry. Obviously, the proceeds go to benefiting the school there. Once again, tomorrow night, Friday night, Fish Fry at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Dinopoulos. Moving right along. New business, unfinished business?
Yes, ma'am. Item 19 is unfinished business and our motions to reconsider or remove from a tabled position.
We have none.
Item 20 is persons wishing to address the council on special subject matters.
Yes. Ms. Pat Pentes? Left? Going, okay. Mr. Al Morello?
Al Morella, 4260 East Loyola Drive, 5th District, 42 years. I want to comment on 12A. I support that legislation fully. However, since we're on a subject of liquor sales and drinking, I was going to pose this question to Michelle Brannigan, but she's not here because she gave me an update on this issue at the February 19th meeting. So now I'm going to direct it to you, Councilwoman DeFrances, because this is your district. Now, the last update I got on the bar in the show was that there was a sign hanging over the door saying that their state liquor license had been applied for. There cannot be no city permits issued for that bar in the show until they get their state liquor license. So now, while we're talking on the subject of alcohol sales and revoking licenses and what have you, I'd like to get an update on what's going on in that bar up in the show. Now, 15A, okay? Whenever we have a project of this magnitude, almost $1 billion, or whether it's this magnitude or not, we shouldn't get updates, progress updates as needed. We should get progress updates on a regular basis. That way, when change orders come before this council, we'll have the information and we can discuss it with the public why these change orders are necessary. So not on an as-needed basis, on a regular basis. Anybody got any comments, any questions for me? How much time I got left, Jeannie?
Well, I gave you about 20 seconds more, so you got about 2 minutes.
2 minutes, okay. Would it be appropriate for whoever's got anything they want to say for them to talk and have me respond?
Procedures state that you should have your 3 minutes, and then the council comes back and they address it afterwards. There used to be a procedure where we didn't let them respond at all, but I initiated that they can come back and speak, so address your concerns. So if you'd like to forfeit your minute and a half, then somebody does have their light on to address it, but I don't, you can't stop it and then start it again. That's not what procedures tells us to do.
That's fine.
Although it has been done, it's not the correct procedure.
That's fine, Ms. Black. You already know my answer to that. There's always the next council meeting in 3 more minutes. But I want to take that minute and a half, and I want to address this to Amy here, okay? As we were talking about the review fees, okay, you were telling Ms. Alessandro that it wouldn't be any cost to the city. It would come out the review fees. But as Councilman Stagney was saying, if it comes out of whatever fees that's due to the city of Kenner, if the higher these fees are, that means that this is the less money the city's going to receive in these fees. Am I correct on that, Councilman Stagney? Amy, I'm correct on that?
Just nod your head on yes or no, Amy.
Just yes or no, that's all.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Ms. Black. See you at the next council meeting, and I'll have 3 more minutes. Thank you.
Your time has just expired. Councilman Denopoulos, you have the floor. Okay. Councilman DeFrancis, you had the floor.
Thank you, Council President. Ms. Valek, could you answer Mr. Morello's question about the theater, please, as the co-director?
About the theater?
Yes,
I
about the
didn't understand what he was indicating. I thought he was talking about bee drinkers in District 2, so
I thought originally he was too
I'm
until he changed
confused
it.
as to
That's-
what the question was itself.
Well, originally, he did mention 12A, and that's why I was confused as well when he first started. But what he was saying was that 12A refers to an alcohol permit, okay? And so because it talks about permit for sale of high-content alcohol at various places, he was then going back to the theater and saying that the theater has an application for a permit but hasn't received it yet. Am I correct? Mr. Morello, you can shake your head yes or no? No? That is not what you said? That was my understanding, that he said they have an application in.
I would have to do some research and check
Would
with
you
the office
please
because
get back to me, and I will make sure that Mr.
we have,
Morello-
we have to deal with the state as well with the
Exactly.
alcohol
Would you-
permits, so.
Would you please get back to me?
I will
And I will
certainly
make sure
follow
not
up.
only that I get the information to Mr. Morello, but I'll bring it up in the next council meeting as well, so that the public will also have the answer. But I am very glad about 12A. I will tell you that Taqueria Sanchez, what was going on was criminal. It was horrible. And we had a very good committee in place that was strong enough to stand up to it and make sure that they came to this council and told us exactly what they felt needed to be done, and that was revoking the permit. And I'm so glad that happened because, again, the city of Kenner doesn't need that kind of business. And we need to get rid of it wherever we see it and stamp it out. So I am absolutely, want to thank that committee for working with the council to make that happen.
Thank you, Mr. Francis. And before we go on to the next person, I just want to say, Amy, you have done, I've been so impressed with the job that you have been doing.
Thank you so much.
You took over, you just jumped from the frying pan into the fire.
I absolutely have.
And
I'm
I
enjoying
know
every minute
that,
of it.
and I just want to tell you that I'm very happy with your composure, your knowledge, your ability to get right to the point, and we're very happy to have you in this position.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, and I truly am enjoying this position very, very much.
Thank you. And now we have Mrs. Evelyn Evans. Did you wish to address the council? Ms. Vanessa Jones. Did you wish to address the council? You just want to let us make sure we know that you're here, right? Well, we thank you for coming. And with that, there's no further business, so this meeting is adjourned.